UN news.
First story tonight, I will be very transparent. I don't know a lot about. Well, in part because I'm choosing to step away more from the news and politics in my regular
Yeah.
life, at least at this point, just to keep me sane.
I've been trying
But
to keep up
also,
with this though, so we should be
right.
good.
That being said, though, I should know more about this, given that this is the region of my ancestors, so to speak. But as I said, DJ Joe Nice is planning to come. We need to figure out a time when he's not
Schedule that.
traveling to actually sit down with him to schedule it. But he does want to talk about this, and he's more well versed on this than me. So hopefully, this can serve as a prelude to what he will probably more likely will expand upon once he's here. So hopefully, we try and secure him down before the end of the year.
Yeah.
But this story is from Truthout, written by Michael Fox, where he reports Caribbean leaders call for unified land American resistance to U.S. attacks. The U.S. has now struck 18 vessels and killed 70 people in its ongoing onslaught in the Caribbean and Pacific. So Michael.
Nice of Michael J. Fox to write things while he lives a very difficult disabled existence with the old Parkinson's and whatnot.
But Michael Fox writes, the tiny island nation of Barbados, with a population roughly the size of Anchorage, Nebraska, or Anchorage, Alaska, or Lincoln, Nebraska, might not be the country one would first imagine taking the lead to stand up to U.S. military actions and ambitions in the region. But as the Trump administration continues to attack boats, first in the Caribbean Sea and now in the Pacific, leaders in Barbados have been vocal. As a small state, we have invested tremendous time and energy and effort in establishing and maintaining our region as a zone of peace, Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley said at a conference in late October. Peace is critical to all that we do in this region, and now that peace is being threatened, we have to speak up. Motley called on other leaders in the region to denounce the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean and the U.S. strikes on more than 18 vessels that, as of November 7th, had killed at least 70 people in the Caribbean and Pacific. U.S. officials say these boats are carrying dangerous drugs like fentanyl and cocaine to the United States. They say the people killed on these boats are drug traffickers. They provide no evidence for these claims, and in fact, administration officials have also admitted that the military doesn't identify the individuals on the boats before hitting them.
Right.
Ben Saul, the UN Special Rapporteur for the Protection of Human Rights while countering terrorism, has called the attacks a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
Family members of the victims who have been found say the people on the boats were just fishermen. They accuse the United States of flouting international law to push its military agenda in Latin America and the Caribbean. I believe that the time has come for us, therefore, to be able to ensure that we do not accept that any entity has the right to engage in extrajudicial killings of persons that they suspect of being involved in criminal activities, said Motley. We equally do not accept that any nation of our region or the Greater Caribbean should be the subject of an imposition upon them of any unilateral expression of force and violence by any third party or nation. Motley is one of many of Caribbean leaders who have condemned the Trump administration's actions, but there is also division, particularly due to the outsized role of the U.S. in the region. On October 18th, Motley met with leaders. Which way
to go?
I think
there it is.
Yeah, I went ahead. On October 18th, Motley met with the leaders of our Caribbean Community or CARICOM member nations. They released a joint statement reaffirming the need for peace, dialogue, and the unequivocal support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of countries in the region. The fact that they're speaking up is highly significant. Alexander Main, the Director of International Policy at the Washington, D.C. based Center for Economic and Policy Research, told Truthout. These Caribbean governments are very reliant on the U.S. in a number of ways, economically, and have been in a vulnerable position, particularly since the passage of Hurricane Melissa, in that the area where U.S. help is badly needed.
Yeah.
This week, the U.S. State Department said the United States would provide $24 million in assistance to the Bahamas, Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica following the destruction wrought by the hurricane.
Which will come at a cost, I'm sure.
Oh,
I think it's good. Skipper?
okay. Yeah, cut out again. Uh, okay, that's fine. One CARICOM country, however, did not endorse the declaration against U.S. strikes: Trinidad and Tobago. Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissonnette has openly supported U.S. President Donald Trump and his actions in the region. She says Trinidad has been impacted by drug violence, and Trump's attacks are trying to make their country safe. He is committed to fight against drug trafficking within our region. My government will continue to support the U.S. military drug interdiction exercises within the region, Persad-Bissonnette told the Trinidad Express. The island of Trinidad is just off the coast of Venezuela, only 6.8 miles at its closest point. The atmosphere in Trinidad is tense, Trinidadian journalist Sojini Gray told Truthout. We are not accustomed to these types of warlike language and these actions, he said. So, narco strikes in the Caribbean is odd, and bodies washing up on shores or citizens being killed. We had 2 of our citizens killed in, I believe, Strike 5. So that has been very disquieting. And then when we reach out to the Prime Minister for comment, she's very evasive. Gray says schools were closed in the capital on October 31st, and grocery stores were overrun with people trying to stock up when news reports suggested that U.S. strikes on Venezuela were imminent. Gray says the Trinidadian military went on high alert and troops were called to bases across Trinidad. Wait, did I skip? Yes. While the attacks expected in those reports have yet to occur, recent actions from the U.S. besides the boat strikes have still given plenty of reason for an abundance of caution. In mid-October, Trump authorized the ICA to carry out covert action in Venezuela. He told reporters the U.S. was considering direct strikes on Venezuela. We're certainly looking at land now because we got the sea very well under control, Trump said. The United States has amassed an unprecedented number of ships and military assets in the region, reportedly the largest military buildup in the Caribbean since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. When the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest warship ever built, arrives in the Caribbean, there'll be over a dozen ships and more than 10,000 military personnel.
Who are these people?
Oh,
hey, thanks,
you,
Jax. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you for the $15. Appreciate you. The Trump administration has labeled drug groups in the region as foreign domestic terrorist organizations in what legal experts say is an attempt to justify military action. Meanwhile, Trump has accused, again, without evidence, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro of being a narco trafficking kingpin. He doubled the bounty of Maduro's head to $50 million in August. Maduro has denounced Trump's threat of military operations in the country and accused Washington of fabricating a war. The Venezuelan government was outspoken against the first boat attack, but since then, it hasn't exactly reacted. Ricardo Vaz, a journalist in Venezuela with Venezuelan analyst, told Truthout. I think the government is really trying to avoid any kind of falling for proclamations or unnecessary escalating the rhetoric. For good reason. Trump has shown itself to be unpredictable, and the U.S. government has hit back against Latin American leaders who have denounced its campaign in the Caribbean and the Pacific.
It's still still screwing up. It's like yours like 2 ahead. It's weird. It's all right. I think this is it, right? Hey, Bear. That one should be this one.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I think I'll have to move it
There we
for
go.
you. I think your thing's being weird.
Yeah, you probably have to.
Yeah.
In late September, the Trump administration revoked the U.S. visa of Colombian President Gustavo Petro. Sorry. The
Petro.
revocation came after Petro spoke to the protesters in New York City, encouraging U.S. soldiers to refuse orders from Trump. Last month, the United States further sanctioned Petro and his family. Trump has promised to cut off all U.S. aid to Colombia. Petro has been one of the most outspoken voices against the U.S. military actions in the region, calling the boat attacks murder. U.S. government officials have committed a murder and violated our sovereignty in territorial water, Petro posted on social media. He named one Colombian man, Alejandro Cardanza, who was killed in the U.S. attack, calling him a lifelong fisherman.
Yep.
In mid-October, Petro called on Latin American countries to unite now to reject and react beyond mere rhetoric against any aggression against the homeland of Bolivar and the Latin American and Caribbean territory. Venezuela belongs to Venezuelans. We've seen some really promising rhetoric and arguments expressed by Petro, but it's not enough. Alexandra Avina, an associate professor of Latin American history at Arizona State University and an expert on the drug war, told Truthout. Historically, the only way that Latin America has managed to stave off catastrophic U.S. intervention is to come together as a region, and we haven't seen enough of that beyond rhetoric. I think also Mexico needs to be a lot stronger, more forceful in pushing back against what the U.S. is planning to do in the Caribbean, because eventually it's going to boomerang on them, he said.
Yep.
That boomerang now seems to be in motion. On November 3rd, news outlets reported the Trump administration was drawing up blueprints to send U.S. troops to combat trout cartels in Mexico, with or without the support of the Mexican government. The United States is not going to come to Mexico with the military, President Claudia Sheinbaum had previously said in August. We cooperate, we collaborate, but there is not going to be an invasion. That is ruled out, absolutely ruled out. Sheinbaum has also denounced the U.S. boat attacks, some of which have been hitting closer to Mexico. On October 28th, U.S. forces killed 14 people in 4 alleged drug boat strikes in the Eastern Pacific, roughly 400 miles from the Mexican city of Acapulco. Sheinbaum dispatched the Mexican Navy to search for survivors. We do not agree with these attacks, she said during her regular morning press conference. We want all international treaties to be respected. But Maine says Mexico is in a difficult position. Sheinbaum has definitely expressed her strong disagreement with these extrajudicial killings in the region, sent Maine, but they're about to enter into a renegotiation of the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. They're also negotiating this security cooperation with the U.S. and doing everything they can to avoid the U.S. violating their sovereignty in a significant way. The United States-Mexico-Canada agreement was Trump's renegotiation of the 1994 North American Free Trade Agreement. USMCA rolled out in
AKA
2020.
NAFTA.
Right.
For those who know.
But the trade deal goes under review every 6 years, and analysts say Trump is likely pushing for a hefty renegotiation ahead of the July 2026 deadline. Oh, sorry, you're doing that.
Yeah.
The Cuban and Brazilian presidents have also condemned the strikes. In Brazil, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has offered to help mediate between Venezuela and the United States, even as his own country is negotiating over its own trade war with the United States.
He'll also negotiate with former head shopper Al Jelani too. So,
right,
a lot of weirdness there, as we've stated previously a couple of times. So,
after Trump slapped Brazil with a 50% tariff for bringing his ally, former President Jair Bolsonaro, to trial for planning to carry out a coup.
Yeah, Bolsonaro.
Aside from leaders, there is Aside from leaders, there is popular movement across Latin America against the lethal U.S. actions in the Caribbean. People have protested in Cuba, Trinidad and Tobago, and Venezuela. But the U.S. military push into the Caribbean comes at a time when the region is far from united. Trump allies like Argentina's Javier
Javier
Milei,
Milei.
El
Yeah.
Salvador's Nayib Bukele, and Ecuador's Daniel Noboa have staunchly backed the U.S. lethal attacks on supposed drug boats. Bukele and Noboa have alleged ties to drug groups and narco trafficking. The problem is that, unlike the pink tide at the beginning of the 2000s, we now have a South America that is not so ideologically cohesive. Brazilian international relations professor Camille Fakes Vidal told Truthout, referencing the shift toward left-leaning governments emblematic of that era. So it will be very difficult to have a regional community to denounce this type of action. I think that, once again, we have seen throughout history, this shows that the United States is not reliable and that it acts by force for its own ends. Oh, okay. So you said you've been watching this for a minute. So
covered it a few times.
What's your take?
Well,
so what's your
couple of things, right? You hear people like Rubio weigh in on this recently, right? Talking about the Monroe Doctrine. Not talking about it, but more talking about like, well, we got it, Iran's involved and Russia's involved, and right, like they're playing this game again, right? Because it's essentially that's how we've had. It's like sovereignty over the Americas is U.S. practically, right? And like the Monroe Doctrine is they try to keep that for like allegedly, keeping other empires out, right? And exploiting, except we're the ones exploiting. So, it's kind of, it's more about the resource management, right? We have a free excuse. And like Trump said that it's definitely like, we're willing to put that in effect, the Monroe Doctrine, so that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, it's also Venezuela's oil. Like, there's a whole lot going on there. And like, the Caribbean is just kind of caught up in the middle of it. Their people are being affected. And we're also using them as like military bases. So, as well as the resources. I think it's also an important context, like, historically understanding why all these regions are important, right? When you think about the Caribbean, especially, like, why was it important for wars to happen there and piracy to happen there, right? Like, why? It's like you have to think geographically, and like look at the resources and just region of the world they manage. Like, there's a reason why we have all these islands in the middle of the ocean, like,
and if you remember when we talked about the Barbados slave codes back like maybe a couple months ago, like at least historically, United States, like people think that some slaves were dropped off in the Caribbean, some to the States or whatever. Like, depending on who you were and given where the need was, slaves were transported between to and from islands depending on the need. So it was more the idea, even back then, of exploitation or going where it was economically viable,
right,
for the United States, well, for the West at the time. So, and I think in a lot of ways that's playing out now still, in terms of, well, we see what Trinidad Prime Minister, why she's acting kind of cagey, because they're like a hop, skip, and a jump from Venezuela. So like, so any action that Trump takes against Venezuela will truly impact them in much more ways besides their connection to the oil with Venezuela, because they do trade with them for the oil there. So So obviously they're going to get in the crossfires, which is why that explains her shadiness, as you saw in the
Right.
article. But traditionally, it's well, traditionally now, still, the United States is going to go where
Yeah.
they're going to exploit.
Well, and
So
you're
this is
hearing
just
you're hearing Venezuela like kind of go back and forth with this. We are and aren't we asking Russia for help, right?
mhm,
Like it's because of that Monroe Doctrine shit, and like it's also because they also recently saw how Russia acted in Syria, and Lula is sitting over there directly dealing with the Western imposed leader,
right.
like recently. So, Venezuela is kind of looking at that and going like, maybe not, you know? So, I mean, there's stuff related to it's all like trade and resource stuff. If you just get down to the bottom of it, like Russian gas is involved too. Venezuelan gas is also involved, right? Lot of stuff going on, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, you recently saw
And
BRICS try to they're going to have a carbon tax, exactly like the IMF does, which impacts, less expensive. Like you can either pay the fines or you can't, right? Like
mhm,
the ones who can't pay the fines then have to pay for actually dealing with the carbon. I think I saw indigenous Brazilians protesting that shit recently. Shadow,
probably, yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, it's hard to tell if protests are even real anymore. But without further like investigation, so, but the minute I see a fucking One Piece flag, you know what the fuck I'm gonna tell you though. Tired of seeing that shit. That they get you some inflatable fucking Pikachus out there. It's meme wars, Collin. I made this thumbnail already. I did it back in fucking. I had fucking Pikachu fighting shit. Now it's real. They made my memes be dreams. No, stop it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Quit that. Knock it off. Like, anyway, anything else you wanted to add? I know
No, like I
we're
said,
missing a bunch. We should reach out to Camila Escalante is doing great reporting on this, as is Kasachu News. Go check them out. Fee's doing pretty good on it as well. Nico, I think, is hitting stuff on it as well. Pretty
yes,
well. So,
yes.
But yeah, anything else you wanted to add?
No,
Cool. Well,
like I said, I think we need to get people who are more well served on this topic than us to give more
yeah, which we
detail.
can do. We got some connects for that we can make. So,
And you guys can let us know if there's anyone, especially with this story. I mean, I don't think really even in independent media this story is talked about enough. I think especially from the Caribbean standpoint, not Venezuela.
Yeah.
But so let us know in the chat, or if you're watching this as a segment, if there's anyone you think we should talk to who can give more information to educate us on the significance of this situation, to reach out to us. So that being said, this is why we're demonetized, because we talk about stories like these that are not favorable to the
Yep.
algorithm or AdSense.
But
So
just the
if
names
you want to support
alone.
us, right? So if you want to support us, you can scan the QR code. You can scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're in the YouTube chat and you're live right now, you can type in !donate, all one word. The link will pop up, and you can give directly. Anything as low as $1. will gladly help us. And again, shout out to Jax for your $15 contribution. We love you and thank you. You can also give on Substack, PayPal, and Cash App. Those links are in the description below. And as we keep saying, we know that times are hard for a lot of people, especially if you're being affected directly or indirectly from the shutdown. So do not give your money if you're in a difficult situation. That being said, if you still want to support us, the best and probably the free way to do it is liking, subbing, and sharing our content. And check if you are still subbed, because sometimes YouTube does some ish and subs people randomly. So double check that. Although I don't think that, at least for us, I don't think that has happened,
Right.
at least as of late. And make sure you leave a comment. That apparently also helps in the algorithm too, I guess. How about that to 3K? We're about, I would say, about 350 away, I believe, as of now. So maybe by the end of the year we can hit 3K. And thank you for watching.